So, Zhuang, welcome to OMPFIV, and thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us today. Can you give me, in very general terms, what you feel is the overall outlook for Asia in 2015, 2016, the overall prospects for the largest economies?
I think our projection is that developing Asia, this excludes Japan, will grow at 6.1% this year and 6.2% next year. And at this rate, Asia will contribute about 60% of global growth.
Are you worried about what looks like a slowdown in China?
Our projection for China is 7%. Of course, there are issues in China right now, for instance, stock markets. But overall, we are fairly confident that China will achieve its growth target of 7%.
What about Southeast Asia? A lot of smaller nations there have all been high growth performers in recent years. Are you relatively optimistic about the outlook for the likes of Malaysia and Thailand and Singapore and so on?
Malaysia, I think, given that it's a highly open economy and relies on exports, so growth, of course, very much depends on external demand. But we see that growth is quite stable, and I think our projection we maintain. Thailand, as recently first quarter GDP figure. Because of the drought and affect agriculture sector, we had to slightly downgrade its growth rate. Singapore, again, is very much dependent on external demand, and but of course, Singapore is a very flexible economy, and we are very optimistic.
We've recently done a poll amongst our advisory board at OMPFIV, and they're quite bullish about Vietnam. What do you think about Vietnam's prospects?
Vietnam is doing very well in recent years, and in the early years, several years ago, there has some macroeconomic instability problem, but I think now it has working out, and we are very optimistic. I think around 6% or a little over 6% growth rate should be achieved.
And oil prices, they've come down. Some countries like Malaysia are hit by this, but overwhelmingly, do you think that the fall in oil prices is uniformly good for your region?
Yeah, overall is good for Asia, but as you said, it affects negatively in some of the countries very much relying on resources, Malaysia and to some extent Indonesia as well.
And we've had recently a lot of speculation that the Americans are about to put up interest rates in September. Some people, also in the emerging markets, they say, let's get this out of the way, let's have the rise so we don't have to speculate about it any longer. Do you think it's going to be a good thing when this rise eventually comes, and can Asia withstand that?
I think our expectation is that the interest rate increase in the U.S. will be gradual and moderate, and we think the market has already factored in this scenario. So if the Fed does follow this scenario, I think the impact on Asia will be likely to be limited.
In terms of the overall macroeconomic imbalances across the region, we've seen that the China current account surplus has fallen a lot, so that's a good thing. What would you say is the general state of payments imbalances in the region? Is that manageable?
I think Asia as a whole has made a significant progress in reducing macroeconomic imbalances. As you said, the current account surplus as a share of the GDP has declined significantly, and of course this has been very much driven by what is happening in China. China's current account surplus as a percent of GDP has declined from 5% in 2009 to 2%, around 2% now. And I think most of Asian countries are committed to promoting domestic demand as a driver of growth, and so this is certainly a very positive development.
If you look at three big influences on Asia, there's the slowdown in China, although China is still doing relatively well. There's what's happening in Japan, the experiment of Abenomics, and then there is also, of course, the United States. which is doing rather well, and there's Europe. So there's four big influences on Asia. Which is the most important? What gives you most cause for hope? What gives you most cause for concern?
I think I would put the recovery in the U.S. Number one importance in terms of importance, given the fact that the U.S. market is the major external export market for most of the Asian countries, and so that's I would put U.S. recovery, pace of recovery as number one.
What about Japan? How important is that?
Japan, of course, is also important, a major trading partner, and also source of FDI for many Asian countries, and also source of advanced technology. So as part of a global value chain and production, regional production network.
So, are you reasonably optimistic that Mr. Abe will succeed?
I think yes, we are optimistic in the sense. I think the economy is moving towards what the government is targeted in terms of the inflation rate and in terms of growth rate.
And Europe?
Europe, of course, we see some difficulties, some weaknesses, of course, mainly in the peripheral countries. And Europe is a major export market for many Asian countries. So they have, the pace of recovery and how these issues, solved out. We have implications for Asia as well. But we are again, at this stage, we are optimistic that things will move towards the right direction.
It must make you pause, though, about any ideas of having Asian monetary union.
No, I think the issue, of course, we talked about 20 years ago, and but since then we know that and Southeast Asian countries have strengthened their cooperation in the monetary and financial areas. There's a Chiang Mai initiative, and then ASEAN Plus 3 has established EMERALD, this Macroeconomic Research Office. So I think things are moving towards what we want to see, and so of course, how future will develop, we have to see.
Yes, I think monetary union might be a step too far.
And then this stage, that's right.
Yeah, and just on infrastructure, this is a big issue. There's a huge infrastructure gap in Asia. There's talk about financing more infrastructure from your own savings. Do you think that in this regard, the establishment of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is a good thing? It brings more money into the region and gives more funding for this very important infrastructure development.
Yeah. Now, Asia as a whole has a large infrastructure deficits and needs. It has a huge infrastructure financing needs, and according to our estimates, the region will require $8 trillion from 2010 to 2020. So we're talking about $800 billion per year, and infrastructure and transport and power supply, water, sanitation, telecommunication. So there's a need, and obviously, for more financing and additional financing through multilateral banks. Including AIIB, I would think will benefit the Asian countries as a whole.
And will the ADB and the AIIB be able to work together?
Yes, I think our president has said the ADB will be pleased to cooperate with the AIIB.
Good. Thank you very much, Zhuang. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you.